armored wheeled vehicles, tanks and artillery firepower. These are just some examples of the military equipment that NATO has stockpiled here in Eastern Europe. About 4,000 soldiers are stationed here in Tapat, Estonia, some 70 miles away from the Russian border. They're here to practice and potentially defend the NATO member state should its neighbor turn its aggression this way. In 2016, NATO members agreed to step up their presence in Eastern Europe by deploying 4 multinational battle groups in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. The battle groups are led by the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany and the United States, respectively. This decision came following Russia's invasion of Georgia in 2008 and illegal annexation of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014. NATO says it had no forces in the eastern part of its alliance before then. We do not. We will not recognize Russia's illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea. What we see is more unpredictability, more uncertainties. And we also see a more assertive Russia, which has substantially built up its military capabilities, modernized its armed forces, chained its forces and tripled defense spending over or since 2000. Now NATO is once again beefing up its presence in this part of the world, as Russia deployed more than 100,000 troops in and around Ukraine. In March, the Defense Alliance announced it was sending new battle groups to Eastern Europe, deploying troops to Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. This means that we will have 8 multinational NATO battleships all along the eastern flank, from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The UK leads NATO's battle group here in Tampa and has contributed the bulk of the troop surge with roughly 1,600 of its soldiers on the ground. There are also 220 Danish troops who arrived in March along with armored vehicles, a sniper section and logistical support. Then there's a French armored squadron here comprising around 200 soldiers. And of course, there are also almost 2,000 local Estonian troops to round up with the multinational battle group. We never rest. We practice, we exercise and we rehearse, we prepare ourselves. And that's all what I think we have to do. So it's exercising, planning, training. At this military base, the war in Ukraine is at the top of everyone's minds. Tabat is about 800 miles to the north of Kyiv. But Russia is much closer, about 70 miles away. It's also near Belarus, which hosted Russian forces and its invasion of Ukraine, and the border's NATO members, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. It doesn't help that these countries have a turbulent past with Russia. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania are known as the Baltic countries, a reference to their shared shorter line with the Baltic Sea. They were under Soviet rule from the end of the Second World War and regained independence in 1991. When the USSR ceased to exist today, the Baltics are members of NATO and the European Union. We definitely cannot rule out the attack against NATO. The Baltics don't really stand out as individuals, because what is his end aim is to demolish NATO. And you achieve this by demonstrating that at least we think in his head that the Article 5 doesn't function as it should function. Article 5 is at the heart of NATO's founding treaty. It commits NATO members to protecting each other if one of its member countries is attacked. It's only been invoked once to date after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Once he succeeds in demonstrating this, then you would have won, then you achieve your goal without large-scale war. But I think all the indications coming from all the largest NATO allies, NATO as a whole, from NATO Secretary General, has been steadfast. There has been no ambivalence in the message. We are actually feeling quite confident, but clearly the hope or confidence or crossing our fingers has never been our strategy. On top of more troops and equipment on the ground, NATO has also reinforced its surveillance of Estonian airspace. The Belgian Air Force was due to leave a mark there based in western Estonia, but given heightened tensions with Russia, they were told to stay longer. And the French Air Force, which was due to replace the Belgians on the ground, arrived earlier, building up much stronger air policing in the region. NATO also has a cyber defense center here in Estonia. NATO's founding treaty only referred to traditional military attacks on land, on sea, on India. But it has been amended in recent years to also include cyberspace. This means that a serious cyber attack on one NATO country is seen as an attack against all allies. What's going on in Ukraine is catastrophic. It's clearly a crime and by the Russian Federation against Ukraine, and it's a crime that should be punished. There is no analytical basis for us to assume that they wouldn't try it against someone else. Their intent is extremely clear. There is no ambivalence there. What they want to achieve is to demolish NATO. We have heard the whole Russia says that these troops, the military bases, are threatening them. My message is no, they are here because of the threat coming from Russia, and they are integrated into our defense to defend our territories, is not building a platform from where we are going to advance towards Russia. So no arrest for these troops. Let's stay on high alert. Maneuvers, push-ups, shootings all the time. It's not up to us, But it's up to Putin, if they want to test us. One thing is certain: Russia's invasion of Ukraine has forced new life into NATO, and alliances that has had its fair share of scrutiny, even from its members. But as the Prime Minister of Estonia is Sauder, neighbor Latvia told me earlier, times have changed. Seems that a new Iron Curtain is probably going to be descending in Europe at best, and this is a best-case scenario. There could be a long-term standoff between Western democracy and the rule of law and Putin's Russia with the rule of might and the rule of force.